Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Wine Time with Peggy show, featuring Peggy Fiandaca, who along with her winemaker husband Kurt Lawrence Dunham, owns and operates LDV Winery in Arizona. Welcome, everyone. We're excited today because we get to talk about soups. It's fall season and soups and wine. And my first thing for Peggy is, how do you take tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches and pair them with wine? That's my first thing.
Yeah, that's the best lunch, right? A tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich, and you'd pair it with Grenache or a Pinot Noir. It balances this acidity and yummy, yummy, yummy.
That is soul food to me. Like, it's not soul food, but for me at times, comfort food, right? It's the
Comfort
best
food.
thing. And we're in that season, but welcome back. How are you doing? How's Arizona? How's the vineyard? How are things going?
It's the perfect time of year to be in Arizona. Beautiful weather, finally under 100 degrees, and it's wonderful. The vineyard is going to sleep, but everything's tucked away in the winery nicely. Yeah, all good in Arizona.
Wow, because I know last time we talked, you said that the leaves on the vineyards were starting to get that little crispy color that we all fall in love with. So now it's bye-bye?
Yeah, it's starting to turn more brown, and they're going to be dropping a little bit in the vineyard. And so we did our nutrients, and we're cleaning up the vineyard floor of weeds and things like that. But yeah, it's just getting it ready for winter time. We're on winter watering now. We don't have to water all the time, and
Nice.
yeah, so it'll be easy in the vineyard until, after the first of the year or early part of next year when we start doing the winter pruning.
But it's party time in the tasting room, isn't it?
Yes, it's party time in the tasting room. We're starting to get very busy. We're getting a lot more visitors. People want to sit out on the patio, and we have the Italian festival right outside the patio on the plaza. So a lot of things happening all till May.
Yeah, well, I know that people like to book the tasting room for parties, right? For the holiday season.
Correct. I just did a lunch for 40 people in the tasting room, a 4-course lunch, wine pairing. So yeah, we're
Wow,
booking up.
you gotta love that part, because I know you love cooking and hosting and parties and pouring wine, but you've got to love this part of the year.
It is. It's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but yeah, I get to be creative, and because we really don't have a full kitchen at the tasting room, so I have to be really creative on how I can produce a 4-course dinner or lunch out of our tiny little kitchen. But yeah, it's challenging and it's fun. I get to really put my recipes that I share with the audience to the test and meet new people.
That's always good. That's a fun part of it. Before we talk soup today, and also we're going to get some tips on Thanksgiving wine pairings for Thanksgiving dinner, especially even for vegan Thanksgivings, because I know if you've got, a vegan in your family and you're not vegan, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? But, there's so many things. There's tofurkey. It is very doable. But we're going to talk Italian wedding soup, but I want to make sure we get the term of the month, and I'm going to let you pronounce it because I thought I knew it, and Nancy laughed at me when I tried to practice.
Well, it's a simple term, reticent. So it is when you use the term in relationship to wine, like when you're tasting a wine, and maybe the wine is holding back some of its characteristics. It's really not exhibiting the aromas or bouquet characteristics like a Syrah should. Then you might call it a bit reticent, that it needs, because it's young, it hasn't really opened up to those full aromas and tastes. So if you tasted a wine and it just, it seems young, it seems like it needs some aging, maybe. So if you had a case of wine and you opened one bottle and it was very reticent, I would wait and maybe try another bottle a month from now or 2 months from now and see if the flavors really evolved. Or I would open that wine and decant it and let it sit and open up a little bit more and see if the flavors and aromas come out of it at that point. But if you it's just a term to describe, I always like to give people terms when they're wine tasting, and so they can define what it is that you're smelling or tasting. So reticent is one that it's holding back those aromas and flavors.
Holding back those years. I hear that song now.
Yep.
So, but right there. But, the other thing too is like, we get impatient and we shouldn't just open a different bottle of wine, right? Because we
Right.
want to go up and say, grow up already. No,
Yeah.
just, and the other one's like, no, I want to hang on to my youthfulness. So
Right.
you just got to be nice. Be nice
Right.
to the wine and just open a different one and let it go. So I like that word. I just thought it was going to be pronounced differently and be different than reticent
Yeah.
because I told Nancy it was like reticent, and she's like, "No, it's not, Lisa. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be because it's going to be a different term." She's like, "No, it's not."
No, it's not.
Okay, all right. Well, I tried. Well, that's the same thing actually. I think this pairs wonderfully, this word, with soup. Because
Yeah.
soup, you know how soup is better the second day, like
Right.
chilies the
Right.
third day. And soup to me, it is like the mole, it is all like the chilies. When you do a good soup,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
an art to me.
It is. Well, soups, I think great soups have layers of flavors to them. You know, not only with the broth or whatever you're cooking it in, but the vegetables or whatever you're putting in it. You want to layer those flavors, and I think that's the beauty of great soup. Even something as simple as tomato soup, but when you maybe roast those tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, and you maybe roast some peppers along with it, and you roast maybe the garlic, and then once they're all roasted, you puree them all together. It has
Mhm.
a whole different incredible flavor because you taste all of the nuances of the different, not only the cooking techniques, but also the actual fruits and vegetables that you put into it.
So
But
this is a party tip for soup. If you have people over for dinner and you have soup, and it's one of those that as you taste it, it's going to have different flavors. This is the perfect time to say, we're serving a flight of wine tonight. So you can taste all of LDVs. For each taste you have, choose the right wine for as it develops. How about that? We
that
need a case
sounds
of wine for soup.
Yeah, that sounds great because there's so many times kinds of fruits or soups, and you pair them with so many different wines. A lot of people would never have thought to put wine with soup, but it's a wonderful pairing if you do it
What?
right.
Chicken noodle soup, chickens. Okay, so the Italian wedding soup. I had to look that up too because I thought, oh, are we getting? I know it's the holiday season, but are they? Yes, I'm one of those who thought this is actually like some traditional wedding soup. I got all excited and found out it was a term that was mispronounced. So I would be one of those who mispronounced it and gave it a whole new name.
Yep, exactly. But it's a wonderful soup. I mean, I grew up on it, of course, being Italian, and anytime you're sick or have a cold, you get a kind of chicken soup, and that's what basically this is because it is a chicken stock based soup. And the recipe that I provided you actually gives you how to do the stock. And
Mm.
I would recommend people make your own stock because then you can really control any additives and the salt content in that. And it's so easy to make, and you can put it in the freezer and always have a nice stock ready for it. But this is a chicken stock that it's basic. But what's fun about it is you make meatballs to go in it. And, this was inspired by Ina Garten's
Oh, we love her.
recipe. Yeah, I know it, right? But I make my meatballs a little bit different with Italian sausage and beef, but you can make it with chicken or pork or
You can get
whatever
chicken
else.
andouille sausage.
Yep, you can make them any way you'd like, but that adds a little spice to this soup. And then again, it's a vegetable base or vegetable soup, so whatever you got and whatever you like. I do it with spinach and,
Nice.
carrots and celery and whatever you got that you need to use up in your refrigerator, make a soup.
I'm so excited about this. I love to make soups in a crock pot
Oh,
because I get
yeah.
super busy and I know that I'm not going to be at the stove and I'm going to mess it up. And so
Right.
crock pots to me are my favorite friend. And when the fall season comes, I'm like, bring me the crock pot because it's
Yep.
so cool because you can leave it in there. And I learned, and people think I'm nuts. So I learned to saute with butter, right?
Right,
You
right.
butter. Saute, you thinly slice like your celery, like really make it thin, your onions, your garlic and all of that, and actually saute it and let it simmer in there for like an hour in the crock pot before you add everything in. And everybody else is frying it and everything. No, if you do a slow saute-ish, simmer-ish, see, kind of, I don't know
Yep.
what the word is.
No, that would be
I'm
great.
getting hungry.
And then I would also add some of your herbs or your dry herbs at that time too. So you're really flavoring up the vegetables. And again, that's creating that layer of flavor that you want, I think, in any kind of cooking you're doing. But that you're right on with that,
Man.
building those layers. And the other thing, of course, with my wedding soup, Italian wedding soup is wine. So this recipe calls for our Viognier, of course, but you can use a Sauvignon Blanc or dry white wine and put that in there when you're cooking the vegetables and serve the same wine that you're
Huh.
going to be using in the soup. Or you might want to do a medium bodied red wine you could do with this because of the sausage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might choose a Grenache or a Merlot or something like that.
Would a Pinot be too heavy?
You could, depending on if it's a lightly oaked or an unoaked Pinot Noir, you might do that. You don't want anything heavy, like a really heavy oaked or smoky Pinot Noir
Okay.
with that. But yeah.
What about a rosé?
Yes, you could do a dry rosé, but again, watch the sweetness levels on that. You don't want anything too sweet with that.
Now, with this recipe, I know you're doing it's chicken based. With Thanksgiving coming up, could you do this as like a turkeyfied, leftover broth from turkey? Because that's
Of
the cool
course.
thing about turkey is you can make broth even out of the bones, right?
Absolutely, you should do
Mm,
that. You know, when you have the carcass after you've carved all the meat off the turkey, either just throw it in the pot with celery and carrots and onions and whatever, and just let it slow cook on the stove and with, put water in it and
and wine.
yeah, yep, and some wine and make your stock. Actually, absolutely, you'll have great turkey stock.
Would it
You know,
work for the Italian wedding soup having turkey or no?
yeah, yeah, and skip the meatballs. Sure.
Or you could put turkey sausage
Yeah, you
or
could. You could do a turkey sausage or make turkey meatballs out of it. Yeah, otherwise it's just turkey soup.
okay. All right. So I'm stretching it. But
Yeah,
turkey soup can be a really good base or like a turkey broth for like a vegetable soup and
correct.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
No,
that's
exactly. Exactly.
mm,
So, some of the
yeah.
other interesting well, here's 3 tips for pairing wine with soup. One, you have to think about acidity. I talk about wine acidity all the time, which kind of refers to the freshness in
Mhm.
wine, maybe a little bit of the tartness or a sour maybe taste to it. And so you want to balance acidity with whatever you're putting it with. So maybe a light broth, like that turkey broth that we talked
Mhm.
about, it requires something with a little bit higher acidity to balance it. So I might choose a white wine to go with that rather than something that has more of a creamy based soup. You could
Okay.
get because that is has more subdued acidity and you want a red wine because red wines are less acidic than white wines. And so you want to avoid that sharp contrast. So I'd
Mm,
probably go with a red wine depending on the spiciness of that soup. Then the other tip
okay.
is think about the texture, so if you're having a creamy soup like a butternut squash, which I love,
Mhm.
and I think I shared my recipe for it in the past, you
Mhm.
want to pair it with something a little bit bolder, like maybe a Chardonnay, a rich Chardonnay would go, because complement the richness of the soup. You don't want to contrast it. The
Okay.
broth based would pair with lighter Sauvignon Blanc because you don't want to
Mm,
overpower the soup, right?
okay.
So the texture, think about the texture and then the flavor profiles. Are you making a spicy albondigas
Yes.
soup maybe or
Might
with
need that after Thanksgiving Day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, those kinds of savory stew-like soups
Mm.
you'd lean towards a Malbec or a Zinfandel or a Petite Sirah, which can stand up to those heartier flavors. So, think wine acidity, soup texture, and flavor profiles when you're trying to pair the right wine with your soup.
I like these tips because it is soup weather and I want to go back on the Italian wedding soup. When you were talking about freezing the broth, now
Yeah.
would you freeze this soup itself, or would you just freeze the broth and do the meatballs like later as an addition once you've frozen all your broth?
I don't care for that or freezing it. I mean, you could, but I would only do it for a short time if you're
Okay.
going to enjoy it a week from now or whatever. Because the vegetables break down,
I didn't know
so
that.
I would strain the soup or strain the broth after you cook it, and
Uh-huh.
so that it's truly a clear broth when you freeze it.
I like this because I think, I love the idea of having it all on hand,
Yeah,
having your broth at least, and then something you can do. And this is a really cool thing because our hours are getting shorter now, right? We're in that
correct.
time of year where everything's, I know you don't, practice daytime savings in Arizona, but I always get messed up over everyone's time zones now. But when the days are shorter, cook up this soup and then use it,
Gosh, yeah,
you have it on hand. I will put a link also. I got to tell everybody your recipe is up right now. So you can check the link in the episode note is on our new Eat, Drink, and Be Merry Substack. So go follow us there. Every time we have Wine Time and Peggy, you'll get an email notification of a recipe and interview so that you can enjoy that. So we're excited about that. We got more things coming next month to tell people about, don't we? We can't tell them now,
yeah,
but we're
yeah.
just going to tease you. I wanted to go back to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Thanksgiving is, the meal everybody starts, especially new people making their first Thanksgiving and trying to impress the in-laws. Boy, oh boy, go get more wine is the first thing. But, putting the menu together, you want to pair the right wine. Do you serve soup on Thanksgiving for you? Do you do that? Like
I
part of the
don't.
appetizer?
No,
Oh,
I don't, but a lot of people do. You might do like a New England clam chowder or something as a soup, or I don't know what a wild mushroom soup maybe,
oh
as an
yeah.
appetizer. I'd put it with a Pinot Noir, of course, with a wild mushroom soup, or a white Burgundy would be perfect. But no, I don't necessarily. We go right into the meal. And, as I think I've talked about in the past, you got to think about the whole meal. Thanksgiving has so many different flavors. If you're cooking a vegan Thanksgiving feast or you're doing a traditional Thanksgiving feast, there's just so many flavors that you have to think about, because if you pair the wrong wine, and it'll ruin the meal in my opinion,
Right.
and ruin the wine. So choose a wine that's going to go and kind of maneuver through all those flavors. And I lean towards a Pinot Noir, a Grenache, or a sparkling wine
Mm,
and do it. But stay away from anything that's too sweet. Save that for your dessert. Just really a Brut Rosé goes
okay.
beautiful with all the different flavors, from sweet potatoes to mashed potatoes and gravy and stuffing, and think about the spices. Are you doing
Mhm.
a southwestern style kind of Thanksgiving with a lot of rich spices and chilies in your stuffing maybe? And then, yep, or a Cajun.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
that's party.
exactly. Yep. So think about the whole meal and offer up wines. But
And the pie, and oh, I'll put a link in for your pie. You did, we've done wine and pie pairing, so that link is also in the episode notes and in the Substack as well. Go to the Substack; it's cool.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all
yeah.
there. So, yeah, I think this is going to be so exciting for people to kind of look at, because sometimes it's like the last thing people think. It's like,
Right,
oh, just grab
right,
wine. But if you
right,
plan it from the beginning, which means you could do, if you're doing Thanksgiving for the first time, I'm going to say maybe do a small practice run, and maybe you don't have to make the whole turkey, but get the flavorings right. Like make a
right,
turkey breast for dinner or something, right?
right, right,
Would you do
right.
that if you have people coming and you've never done it before?
Yeah, and there's so many great places to get help, or send me a text and I'll help you.
Peggy loves to talk food and wine pairing.
Exactly.
She'll help you. She'll help you.
Yep,
So
yep,
everything
yeah,
to the pie.
yep,
And you mentioned vegan because that is a little
yeah,
different. So I wanted to
yeah,
touch on that because a tofurkey is going to be a little bit different.
yeah. And again, I think about the spices, of course, but yeah, if you're doing kind of a vegan but trying to stay in the traditional realm with the spices, the savory kind of sage and spices like that on your vegan protein or vegan main part of the meal, then stay with the same kinds of wines I'm suggesting with Pinot
Mhm.
Noir or Grenache or that type of thing. But Sauvignon Blanc is great with if you're doing more fresh salads or Chardonnay with maybe the vegetable dishes like Brussels sprouts or
Mm.
um, beans or something like that. But the Cajun
Mhm.
spice dishes, like if you're going that, look for a Carnier, which is a red wine that pairs beautifully with that. But the other thing as a LDV is vegan wines. You
That's
need if you're going to do a vegan Thanksgiving, you better choose a vegan wine also because most wines are not vegan. Look for contact LDV, we can ship you some wine, or look for a vegan wine to go with your meal.
That's important. I think because that's true. People think, oh, but what happens in the soil? And I know Nancy and I have had wines. We're allergic to seafood and fish. And sometimes you'll have wine and all of a sudden you'll see us not breathe very well, which means we could
Right?
end up in a hospital or they bring out those EpiPen things and that's too much like a needle. We don't want
Yeah.
that. But our face starts to get tingly and red and puffy and our lips could swell, which is interesting. This is because they're using fish.
Yep, fish bladders or whatever to do the fining process in the wine. And unfortunately, you're not told about that on the
Mm.
label. So you're taking your chances with what they might be using in their fining product.
So yeah, and a lot of people are vegan out of health reasons.
Right,
No,
exactly.
and so that's something to think about if people, yeah, it could, yeah, it's important. So if you're having vegan
Right.
guests, have vegan wine, and
Yep.
everyone will have a good time.
Yes, exactly. Have
That's
fun.
awesome.
Choose an American wine. It's an American holiday, so choose an American wine.
That's right. That's right. I love that. And okay, so what is your Thanksgiving? Ultimate, I want the appetizer, the meal, the wine and dessert. Like what is for your
Goodness, I love tradition. I do tradition, but make it everything from scratch. I don't understand necessarily getting a whole meal delivered to you from the grocery store and you heating it up in the microwave. It's like, wait a minute. I understand being too busy or it being a lot of work, but that's love to me is spending the day cooking and having all the smells and having people help you.
and the laughter, the little
The la
conversations and kitchen
Ex
talk.
exactly. Yeah, so I do traditional, though I do go the extra mile, so I will get, like, chicken parts, like the wings and or, excuse me, turkey parts, like the wings and neck and things like that, and I roast all of that with a lot of garlic and herbs that usually the day before, because that becomes the base for my gravies so I'm making the broth from some chicken parts ahead of time so I have a really flavorful base for my gravy that I make. And I
Mm.
do an Italian sausage stuffing, again, a nod to my Italian heritage. So it's very
We're
spicy.
not complaining about this.
It's very spicy, and I roast the turkey with a lot of herbs under the skin. A lot of people don't,
Mm.
they complain about, "Oh, a dry turkey," but I give my turkey a lot of love with rubbing butter and an herbed butter, usually under the skins and stuffing some herbs under the skins and marinating that
Mm.
during the cooking process. So it's always really moist and wonderful.
And the skin is one of the best parts.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me the
Exactly.
fatty stuff. Yep, I'll take it. I'll take it. So the turkey. Now, do you do ham?
We do no, sometimes we do lasagna, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm
So
in.
yep, 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 and I love ham. So we do ham
Oh,
sometimes too. Big baked ham. Not one of those already cooked, already sliced spiral hams. We actually do ham
okay.
on
Oh,
on the bone and yeah.
man. We're gonna have to talk about corned beef at some point. Maybe we'll do that for when we get to St.
Yeah,
Patty's Day because Nancy and I can started getting into that habit. Like because we lived out of the country for so many years,
right,
turkey was
right,
not a big deal.
right,
Lamb actually was more of the
right.
things. But corned beef, as soon as we got here, she got so excited. And that's how we started doing roast corned beef. And she does this bourbon clove thing that
Ooh.
is, and then you top it with a really dark, spicy mustard at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can't. But anyway, I know that is not Thanksgiving, but
Yeah.
you are allowed to do what you want as adults.
Right. And
As
that's what
far
I
as,
do with my
yeah.
ham. I do a very rich basting of the ham with
Mm.
a dark mustard and
Oh,
cloves and
that's where
all kinds.
that's where my mind went when you started
Yes,
talking ham.
exactly.
Now, what is like an appetizer? Do you do salads? What's a really good appetizer for you?
I love stuffed mushrooms as an appetizer. Think
Peggy with a
I
little
know it.
sausage in them.
Course, yep. Those are just wonderful. Deviled eggs in my house are always on the table at Thanksgiving, or usually as an appetizer. My brothers devour those before dinner, basically. They never make it to the table.
Wow. All right. So deviled eggs. Now, what about dessert?
Dessert is a pie. I'm a cherry pie lover. So always a cherry pie, always a pumpkin pie. That's not my favorite, but we always do a pumpkin pie. And a lot of times I'll do an apple pie because we have the apples from the vineyard orchard. So we have a lot of apples. So got to start using those.
Or distilling them. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Wineries have a other side of distilling. I'm just, going there. The other thing too, I'm seeing that people are talking about these purple sweet potato pies. I'm seeing a lot about that. And so
Oh, interesting.
yeah, and now I'm thinking because I do love the sweet purple potato. Oh, they're
You
good.
like those, huh?
Very
Okay.
healthy for you. So
Okay.
I'm gonna, yeah, I have no clue. I have no clue about making it, but if anyone does, please send us a note. We want to know
Right.
because that would
That's a,
be an interesting pairing too. But you'd have to have a
right.
sweet wine with that, right? It's sweet potato,
I,
a Swedish wine or
I have no idea.
sweet-ish, I should say. Yeah.
Sweet-ish, yeah, I don't know, can't get that flavor profile in my head to understand what it tastes like. I'm gonna have to experiment with that.
Sweet potato pie.
Of
That
course.
is actually with the white yam. There's a whole whatever. There's yams and sweet potatoes, but
Right.
that was something that was. It's an African dish. So I
Wow.
wonder if this purple sweet potato is a derivative off of that. But and it's good. Is
Oh,
absolutely it. Like I always worry about the texture, but it has the white ones are a little more stiffer
right,
than
right.
the orange yam.
I think they're
Sometimes they get a little weird.
I think they're more starchy than,
Yes, yes, it's almost like a
right,
little and not overly sweet, like the orange ones
right.
are, a little sweet, and that this thing of putting marshmallows on there, I still don't understand why that happens here,
I know,
I
I
don't get
know.
it. I don't know if the Pilgrims knew about mushrooms back then. I mean, not
Uh,
mushroom
uh,
marshmallows.
I know, it's kinda crazy. I always have to do a little tiny dish for my mom loved those, and so I would make a little dish for her, and everyone else had sweet potatoes, little
See,
sweet
I do a
potatoes.
curry, like, I will have it for breakfast. I'm weird. I will take a sweet
Oh,
potato, saute it up, cut it up with onion, garlic, turmeric, curry powder, maybe some chili powder, and so it's got a little buttery because and using butter, okay? And then you mix it with goat cheese, and you sprinkle
oh,
goat
wow,
cheese, and
yeah,
the
yeah,
goat
yeah.
cheese kind yeah,
Okay. Well, kinda bring us back to the soup, that if you
yeah.
did curried sweet potato soup or curried pumpkin soup because of the texture of the soup and because of the warm spices, I might put it with a sparkling Chenin Blanc would be a
Mm.
wonderful pairing for your breakfast or for
Well
a soup.
yeah, I'm not gonna say that's never happened before. Maybe not that soup at that time, but yeah, I could eat that anytime, even
Yeah.
cold. I'm weird, but
No, that sounds
I love
wonderful.
those. I don't know, it's a earthiness and it comes from I think it's comes from Africa because a lot of those dishes
Okay.
had that, you know,
Right.
earthy goodness,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
cool. Well, Peggy, always fun having wine time. Everyone stay tuned for December's show. It always gets exciting. We always have, we're always talking food and gifts and what's going on in the actual tasting room. So if you go to Scottsdale, perfect time to go in there, do a tasting, find some great gifts at the tasting room, take part in one of the events as well. I know you do so many different tasting events and learning events. So, but if you're learning, you're still sipping wine and and having fun. So go to ldvwinery.com, as always, linked in the episode notes, and check us out. Eat, Drink, Be Merry on Substack. The link is in the episode notes. Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers. You bet.
Cheers to
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Wine Time with Peggy show. Keep up with LDV Winery at ldvwinery.com. Keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.